I left the English Defence League. I go to jail for a mortgage fraud, which again, I can go, it's a total bullshit, but for a mortgage fraud. And I get transferred to Wood Hill Prison with terrorists they got 30 years for planning to kill us. And I'm put in jail. I get battered. I lose my teeth. I'm locked in a room. I'm transferred from there down to Winchester. I'm at the end of my fucking head. And in all honesty, at that moment in my life, I thought, I'm never talking about Islam again. I've had enough of this. Yeah. At that moment. I then get called into a meeting. I get told I've got a legal visit. So they come and the prison officers come and get me. They bring me to a meeting room like this. There's two young lads sat there, younger than me, and they look like lads. And they said, Tommy, no one knows we're here, okay? The only person that knows we're in this jail is the head governor. So when you leave here, no one knows who's visited you. You can go back and say whatever you want, all right? So, okay. And they said, we're from a secretive organisation called the Metropolitan Intelligence Bureau, MIB. So, okay, we're based in Scotland Yard. Okay. We've listened to what you say. You could help your country here. You could be an asset to your nation. You could help us. Wow. You could help us. How can I help you? Bearing in mind you fucking persecuted me for the last 3-4 years. You've ruined me. Raided my house, done this, done that. How can I help you? You've left the English Defence League. Yeah. Because you're opposed to the far right. Yeah. We need in the far right. So if you would leave jail and go back. So you're taking the fucking piss. Are you actually taking the piss? This would be financially very beneficial to you. Yeah, we can help you. I said, oh, you're mental, man. I said, you've fucking hammered me. I said, why would you want to do that? What's the reasoning for that? So we can control the reactions. Mm.
They want to spy.
They want to control the reactions of, if there's a terrorist attack, we've got control of what you're going to do. It's like, what the fuck, man? I was gobsmacked. Yeah. I said, lads, really? I said, I find this insane. And then I said, and by the way, I'm no one's bitch. I'm never going to be a bitch to you. I'm never going to be a grass. It's never going to happen, lads. And at this time, they said, well, what's your plans when you leave jail? I said, I am never, ever talking about Islam again. I'm tired, man. I said, and I managed. So from when I started in 2009, between me and my wife, we had 7 properties before the EDL. I'd managed through the financial restraint of 4 years and the prosecutions to maintain the 7 properties as a family. We still had the 7 properties. They're all rented out. So they said, what's your plan when you get out? I said, I'm going to go back to property and business. I'm going to make money again. Because I'd been on this financial restraint for 4 years. When I went to jail, that's it. I come out, I'm on no financial restraint. For the first time in 4 years, I can leave jail and make money again. Yeah? I said, so I'm going back to work, lads. They said, where will you be in 5 years? I said, I'll be a millionaire, bro, multi-millionaire. I'll be successful. I know where I'll be. So just, I'm getting back out. I'm going to be driven. I'm doing this. And I'm going to buy a plot of land. I'm going to do this. And I said, okay. And then we sat and chatted. And then I said, I'm not interested, lads. Yeah, I'm done with this. I'm done with it. I've been battered in jail. I'd faced all these problems. My wife had enough. My kids, I was sat there. I was down. So I left jail. And then I'm driving, and I cover this in a York free speech video. Mm-hmm. I'm driving on the motorway. I've got 18 months. I've got 9 months left of prison license when I leave. So for those 9 months, I have to do what the prison want me to. Yeah. So I have my probation officer was the head of counter-terrorism. Yeah. My conditions for the mortgage fraud when I left jail were not to contact the English Defence League, not to go to protests, not to do. I had all these conditions which limited my political activism. Yeah. Apparently it wasn't a political case. Yeah. So I come out of jail, and then I have a meeting with my counter-terrorism officer who I had to meet every week, twice a week, I think. And I have a meeting with them, and she said, like, and any plans I had and anything I want to do, I have to run by them because I'm under prison license. So I said, I've been invited to Oxford University. I said, so I'm going to speak at Oxford University. And they said, okay, what are you speaking about? And before this happened, I'm driving in my car, and I get shut off on the motorway. I get pulled in by 3 cars. Police pull me in. Okay, I go, what's going on? They said, you're under arrest for burglary. Huh. I said, I'm under arrest for burglary? What are you fucking talking about? And they arrested me for a suspicion of a house burglary. And I get into the cells, and I said to myself, well, I haven't left the motorway. I don't give a shit about what this is. This is bullshit. Are they going to license recall me? He said, no, they're bailing you. I said, they're bailing me. So I do an interview. I said, I spoke in an interview. I played the recording of the interview in my York speech, yeah, where you can hear them question me on a burglary. which is insane. I'm many things. I've never been a burglar or anything, yeah? So as a question, and then I get home and my wife's there and she says, Winchester Prison's been on the phone, which I was just released from. I said, what for? She said, you've left property there. I said, okay. She gives me an 0207 number. That's not Winchester Prison. So I ring the number. It's me, Ollie, from MIB. I come and saw you in jail. I said, okay. You're in a predicament now, Tommy, aren't you?
Oh, what?
I said, I'm in a predicament. They said, yeah, if you're answering bail in 3 weeks. When you answer bail, if you get charged, you're on licence recall, you're doing 9 months. Now, 9 months prison for me is death, possibly, yeah, or violence all the time. And it's hard. It's not normal, right? So it's not just like going to jail. So I'm shitting myself anyway. Yeah? I said, I haven't burgled anywhere, yeah? Tommy, you just come and have a chat with us. Just agree to have a chat with us. We can make this go away. I cried my eyes out to my wife. I said, what the fuck do I do here? I always know what to do, and it's just carry on and fight. And I've walked around like that. That's how I walk around. Like, I know what I'm doing. I'm going straight ahead. But in this, I was like, what the hell am I meant to do now? And then, so when I pleaded guilty under this mortgage fraud, the mortgage fraud they got me on, so 7 mortgages between me and my wife, all 100% legit. My wife's brother-in-law self-certified that he earned more than he earned. So he said he earned 20 when he only earned 12. He bought a house in 2006. He done it up and sold it 9 months later. 3 years later, they come and nicked us all. Yeah, because he was an apprentice for my plumbing business. So when it gets to court, they tried me on tax evasion. I got not guilty. Yeah, it kicked out straight away. They said I owed them 137 grand tax from my businesses. This is when they clamped all our stuff. Then so I know they've got nothing on me, and then they instigate proceedings against my wife for tax, and then they offer me a deal, which is when I went to court. If you plead guilty to my brother-in-law's fraud, right, what have I got to do with his form? Nothing. I haven't signed it. I haven't guaranteed it. But if I plead guilty to that, they drop that. They had other family members as well. They drop the tax. They leave the wife. So, and at first they wanted me to plead guilty to £500,000 of fraud. And I said no. And that was 4 years or 5 years maximum sentence. And then they come back. They swore the jury in. It's at St Albans Crown Court. They put me in St Albans, posh area as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Lovely.
Yeah, lovely, but a middle-class posh area that don't think good of Tommy Robinson.
Yeah.
Not a working-class community that understand who I am. Not Luton town. Why weren't I in jury in Luton, my own town? Yeah? But they put me in St Albans. So they swear the jury, and I had 3 Muslims on my jury. And 1 PCSO. A PCSO. Oh, it's a fucking police officer. It's a part-time police officer. How are you putting him on my jury? So they swore the jury, and I'm sitting there, and I didn't take their deal, and then they pulled me back out before trial. They had no evidence on me. And when they pulled me back out, I said, right, plead guilty to these charges. And we drop them all against the family. So I rang my wife and said, right, maximum 2 years. I'm going guilty. Because I can't no one knows what my wife looks like. My ex-wife. If you try, there's no images of her. Yeah? She can walk through Luton. I can't. Right? Not without confrontation. She can. Right? So her safety is now at risk if she stands trial. So I take the deal. I plead guilty. I get 18 months. So I take the plea. I go to jail. I get 18 months. But what I've done when they come to pleading guilty, I know how they work with the proceeds of crime. So I'm pleading guilty to a fraud that I haven't done. So I said, okay. You want me to plead guilty to that, but there's been no financial benefit because the house was bought for 60,000. My brother-in-law bought it, bought for 80,000 with a 20,000 deposit. It was done up and it was sold for 120,000. So there's no fraud. The mortgage company got paid back. Yeah. So I pleaded guilty under the agreement that it does not instigate proceeds of crime against me. So that you can't come to me for any money. I'll plead guilty. So in our plea deal for me to go guilty, otherwise I wouldn't have gone guilty. I've gone guilty, but I go to jail. Sitting in jail, when I get out, sell the houses, bang, back to work, yeah? Because I can't borrow, I've now been convicted against for fraud. So I come out of jail, I've told them these intentions in the meeting with the MIB. I've told them what I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. Yeah? They nicked me on a burglary, so I'm nicked on a burglary, and then I get an invite to Oxford. So I say to my counter-terrorism officer, I'm blowing the lid on your intimidation and your blackmail, basically, by the state, by secretive organisations to try and make me work with them. Because what they done is I got a letter when I come out of jail and I refused to when they contact me on the burglary, I said, fuck off. They then sent my lawyers a letter saying they're activating proceeds of crime against me for the mortgage. I was like, how can they do that? I pleaded guilty. And the wording on the plea deal was at this time, we will not activate proceeds of crime. So their argument is no longer at this time. Yeah, we're coming for you for 125 grand. That's what they said I owed them. Then they contact me again. You agree to work with us, it goes. I sold my house, I paid them 125 grand. Right? But I had to pay him 125 grand. So the value the house sold for, 120, even though 60 of it was on a mortgage, 20 of it was deposit, they took off me. It's like, how? Right? How? And then even a year later, so when they took that. So I told Sue Beaumont as her name, horrible woman. I told her, yeah, I'm going to blow the lid on all of this. I'm going to talk about this secretive group and what they've done, the blackmail. And 2 days before my speech, Oxford University, they recalled me to jail. And if you watch, so they recalled me to jail. So I'm meant to talk. I'm recalled to prison. I do 28 days recall. I get back. I'm fighting again in Bedford. I come out of jail, and then I contact. I'm stubborn, as you probably have realised. I contact Oxford University. I said, please give me the platform again, please. Yeah, I've got something I need to talk about, and I need an audience, a good audience. So they set up another one. So Sue Beaumont comes round, and I said, oh, that didn't work. I'm talking to Oxford University in 2 weeks on that date.
Wow.
And then they said, then they give me conditions of what I can talk about. You can't talk about the police, can't talk about Islam, can't talk about Muhammad, can't talk about Muhammad. They covered all the things. And I said, yeah, I'm still talking. And then I thought, and it was the best thing because my Oxford Uni speech, I just talked about my life. I thought, well, I won't talk about those things, but I'll talk about my life in Luton. And if you watch that speech at Oxford University, you'll see me start off saying the speech I come to give you about the police, I'm not allowed to give you.
That's right.
I go back to jail. Yeah. That was what this was about. This was about me exposing. And so then they took me through the courts, and I had to pay the system £125,000 now. And I was in a bad place all the way through that. And a year later, when I got my head together, I went to see lawyers and I said, how can they take 125 grand off me when there was no fraud and no loss of money? And they said, they can't. I said, well, they fucking did. Right? That's what they done. And we appealed it to the High Court of London. And the judge said, no, they should not have done this.
Wow.
But it has to be an exceptional abuse of service for them to allow it, the hearing out of date. And they didn't allow it. So although he accepted it was wrong, them taking the 125 grand, you
couldn't get it back.
Couldn't get it back.